Good evening, Rotarians and guests. My name is Philip Cornish, and I'm your MC for tonight's meeting of Rotary Melbourne. We would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri and the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nations and pay our respects to elders past and present and future, and extend that respect to all Indigenous Australians present today. Please note, most microphones have been muted for the duration of the presentations. Accolades, comments and questions can be posted via the Zoom chat function throughout the presentation, which you can see down at the bottom of your screen, hopefully. And it's my great pleasure to welcome you to our monthly evening conversation, our 16th club meeting of the Rotary year, and our 5,053rd all-time meeting. One day I'm going to run a suite on that to see who gets it. So we're very pleased to see you all make it here. Our guest speaker tonight is Dr. Karim Moussa, Emergency Physician Director, Emergency Department, John Faulkner Private Hospital, and author. Dr. Karim will be speaking from defeats to defining moments, unleashing mindset powers, and will be more fully introduced shortly by our chair of the day, Stephen Rando. So welcome, Dr. Karim. Good to have you on board.
Thanks, Philip.
Our club evening meetings are led by a team with co-chairs Kenza Dari and George Giamandakis. We have an evening meeting every second meeting of the month with novel locations or venues and featuring great conversation with our city's leaders. We would obviously welcome suggestions of suitable guest speakers for the program. Please reach out. Now I pass to the meeting to our chair of the day, Stephen Rando. Over to you, Stephen.
Thank you, MC Philip, and great address. Before we begin, I'd like to introduce you and thank you again, Dr. Karim, for joining us in your busy schedule. For those who all don't know, Dr. Karim Moussa has a Bachelor of Medicine, a Bachelor of Surgery, MBBS Medicine, in which he received grade honours at the Alexandria University in Egypt. And he has been an emergency physician at the Box Hill Hospital, the Maroondah Hospital, Austin Health, and currently the Director of Emergency Services at John Faulkner Private Hospital. Dr. Moussa will share his insights, his very important insights, in referring to his upcoming book, Winner's Mentality. This book is about surviving adversity, unlocking the creative strategies, and a mindset that empowers to thrive and break free from the limitations of the past. We look forward to hearing from your journey, Dr. Moussa, and offering our audience this evening the tools that can empower us to rise above any challenge and create our own path to victory. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce you, Dr. Karim, to commence, and please, all of you can please also give me another warm welcome for him. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, everyone. It's my pleasure to be here with you tonight, and I've been very excited to have this opportunity to share my experience with you all. I'm going to share my screen. Before I get started, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. First of all, what do you do when you're stressed? At work or at home or anywhere? Do you have any plan? Do you have any strategy? And you don't have to answer this question now. Just think about it. We'll get to it at the end of the presentation. The second question that I would like to ask, what would make you happy in life? All right, we'll leave it here. I'm going to start talking about my journey. First of all, I was born in Egypt, in Alexandria, very average family. I spent my childhood suffering from severe asthma. So I spent most of my childhood going between doctors, hospitals, emergency departments. And I got to a stage where I got sick of it. And I said to my parents, why there is no cure for asthma? And it just played on my head for a long time. And I wanted to be a doctor to find a cure and help everyone with the symptoms that I had. And it grew in my head. And I ended up actually achieving my goal despite of all the challenges I had in my family and outside. And I ended up going to medical school in Alexandria. And I ended up getting high degrees, and I was very enthusiastic about my future as a doctor. So I used to go to remote Egypt to work as a post-operative coronary care registrar, and I went all the way to South Egypt to work, to have the honor to work with Magdi Yaqub. He's one of the biggest cardiac surgeons in the world, who passed away just 3 years ago. Then I had the opportunity to be a hematology registrar, and I used to work mainly with leukemias and bone marrow transplantation in Alexandria. And I did master in hematology, but I felt like because I didn't have any connection or didn't have any doctor in my family, and that's kind of important in Egypt to get through in life. So I decided to leave all of this behind and pursue my dream in Australia. So I left my career, my degree, my family, and I started studying for Australian Medical Association exam. And that's when I met my wife, Shaima. She was born in Egypt and she grew up in Australia. So we got married in 2009 and I came to Australia. I tried to apply for jobs, but my English was extremely bad. So as you can imagine, I went to government school in Egypt, so I didn't learn much English at all. So it was all mostly self-taught. So I ended up doing the IELTS exam 7 times. And I did my OET exam, which is another trial exam that would get me through, but I failed twice. So after 9 attempts, I finally managed to get through. And I managed to convince the director of Werribee Mercy Hospital to employ me after spending 6 years as a hematology doctor and cardiology. I was an intern again at Werribee Mercy. So then once I got my full registration, I decided to continue my career and become an emergency physician. So I wanted to join the emergency college in Australia, the Australian College of Emergency Medicine. I asked a couple of my friends who were IMGs as well, international medical graduates. They had a lot of struggle finishing the exams, fellowship exams. I asked, look, I'm thinking about joining the college. What do you think? They said, oh, not a good idea. They require very high professional English language. It's a tough journey, and they're quite racist. They're not going to let you pass, okay? So I took that in mind. I thought about it for a few days, and I decided I'm going to go ahead anyway. So that's when my wife got pregnant, and we had our first child, and she had to leave her work as a civil engineer. And she also used to work in commerce as well. She had double degree. She left all of that, and she decided to just look after our baby. Well, we just managed to get through it with all the difficulties and all the goods and bads together until I managed to get through my exam after exam after exam. And we ended up having 3 kids. And one of my kids ended up with chronic medical conditions that made our life a little bit harder. So we used to sleep at night with our eyes open, just to be able to look after my daughter. Added a little bit of stress to our family. My wife couldn't go back to her work. She started studying teaching. She did diploma in teaching. And I continued doing what I'm doing, working full time, looking after the family, looking after my daughter, until I finally managed to the final fellowship exam, the written exam. So there is written and fellowship exam. So I joined the teaching program at Eastern Health, and I had amazing mentors, and they were very happy with the way I was going, and I ended up sitting the exam, and I passed from my first attempt. After that, I thought, here you go. I'm just one step close to finishing or achieving my dream as an emergency physician in Australia. So I joined the training program for the OSCE exam, and I was studying as hard as I can. And I said to my wife, look, you're not going to be able to work today. You just look after the family. I'll have to study, have to cut down my hours. There's going to be a lot of financial stress on us. But it's a short period of time, and hopefully then we'll be able to achieve all our dreams. We'll buy you the big house that we've been dreaming of. We'll get you a new car, send our kids to private schools, and life will be amazing. And I sat my exam, and that was the outcome. I had the results on the 29th of the 11th, 2018, that I was unsuccessful. It's a big shock. And I was quite devastated. Like, I did very well and I thought I almost got it. I almost passed. What happened? What went wrong? Then I thought about it. Maybe I didn't study enough. Maybe I didn't attend enough courses. Maybe I didn't practice enough. Maybe I didn't have enough time to do trial exams. So I did all of that. I booked all the courses that I could book. I reduced my work hours even further. I decided just to double down on what I'm doing. And I used to practice day and night on my own. And I joined study groups, attended all trial exams all over Australia. And that ended up causing a lot of financial stress. I was socially isolated from everyone and away from my family in Melbourne and overseas. And you can imagine from 2012, when I joined the college, 6 years to get to that stage. And with that pressure, exam after exam, and now I'm putting a lot more pressure on my family. And I'm holding my wife back not to pursue her dream and her career. So I did all of that for 1 year. And then I thought, I'm just ready. I'm ready to go. And then sat the exam, and that was the outcome. Again, unsuccessful. So that was a big shock. What went wrong? I did everything that I could have done. My family was shocked, and my kids were, no more. My family said, that's enough. We can't deal with this anymore. I've got bills to pay, zero credit balance in my credit card. All my accounts were overdrawn, and I was struggling to work. Couldn't even do one shift or finish one shift from the trauma that I had, and with all this financial and social stress on me. And the struggle as well was to hide my emotions from my colleagues at work. I felt as a doctor, it's embarrassing to be in this situation. So, and I tried to find out what went wrong. So I tried to get my station recordings from the college, and I was unsuccessful. And then all of a sudden, I remembered my friends 7 years ago, and they told me, the colleges they're racist. They're not going to let you pass. Then I started to look up all of these ideas, and I found a lot of information about racism. And there was some allegations against the college. And I thought, maybe that's what happened. So I ended up leaving all of that, and I just doubled down on, okay, I'm going to take some legal action. And I kept on talking to all my friends who failed the exams. And I ended up speaking to lawyers. And then I found out that I'm not going anywhere. So got quite depressed. I was unable to work, and I was unable to sleep at night, napping most of the day. I had no interest in doing anything at all. Poor appetite. I was losing weight. I was angry, grumpy all the time to all my friends and my family and my kids. So I went to my GP and I told him, look, I'm really struggling. I can't function anymore. My life is just going downhill. And he told me, look, you're a doctor, you know all about it. It's all in your head. I said, I understand, but I'm really struggling. I've tried everything I can't. My life is going downhill. So he gave me antidepressants and made me more sleepy. Didn't make me feel any better in any other way. So I was sleeping day and night. And then my wife started work, and she said, that's it, I'm going to work. You do what you can do, and we'll just survive like that. Until I got an email from my fellowship mentors. They told me, look, for the candidates who failed the exam before, we're offering them an opportunity to do a trial exam. And if they pass, you will be able to observe the program, but you won't be able to participate. So I actually don't want to do the exam again. I just want to do the trial exam so I can hopefully find out what went wrong. So I went, and I did my first station and I felt very good. And I went inside. They told me, you've got 7 out of 7. So that was amazing performance. And all of a sudden, hold on, how come I'm passing all the trial exams? Everyone is giving me good comments. But when I sit the real exam, I can't pass. And I just felt like it was just post-traumatic stress disorder. I was shaking, I was sweaty, until my mentor said, are you okay? I said, yeah, I'm okay. He said, no, you're not. She said, can I talk to you outside? I said, okay. She told me, I think you should go and see a psychologist. You're not right. I said, here you go. It's getting formal now. So I couldn't finish the trial exam. I left, went to the car. I actually didn't tell my wife that I was doing a trial exam. And I stayed in the car. I was just crying. My dream is slipping away from me. I wasted all this time and I left all of this in Egypt. And I spent my time, my kids' childhood away from them. And now I'm nowhere after all of that. So I ended up thinking about overdosing on tablets. So I took some tablets while I was sitting in the car and I decided I'm just gonna drive into a brick wall or jump off a bridge. And I was thinking about it for a long time. And my wife was calling and I'm ignoring her calls. And I just didn't have the courage to do it. So I went home, slept, didn't want to talk to anyone. And I was just thinking about it, what I'm going to do. I'm unable to work. I'm unable to pay the bills. I can't even study. And I wasted my life. Anyway, day after day after day, it was just getting worse and worse and worse. So one day, I decided that's the day I'm going to do it. So I took all the tablets that I had and I went out, drove my car, and I was just about to do it. And my wife felt that day there was something wrong. So they kept on calling me. I had 100 calls from everyone. And I couldn't do it. Didn't have the courage to do it. So I went home and all my kids were standing there and my wife knew it. And all of my kids were just saying to me, Dad, we don't want any house. We don't want any car. We don't want money. We just want our dad back. And that's just when I lied down and I just kept on crying. And I decided from now on, I'm just going to go and see a psychologist. So I went and saw a performance psychologist and speech pathologist. And I had a couple of sessions and we were talking about what could have gone wrong. And he was talking to me and I kept on trying to get as much help as possible, just for my family. I didn't want to do it for me. And we've went through all the exam trials and all of that. And we've decided, or we've come up with some possible problems that I had. He told me that because of the high stakes that you've got, it was putting a lot of pressure on you in the real exam. So, and I kept on trying to analyze all of that. And I realized that when anything happens, like if someone asks for a cup of water while we're standing outside waiting to get in, I get frustrated. I get interrupted. When I'm in a consultant to consultant station in the real exam, when I look at the examiner's eyes, I feel intimidated. I just shakes my confidence. In the simulation station, you go in, you find nurses doing CPR on a child, people screaming, running around, and I just get in and I'm just overwhelmed. I can't perform well. When I come out of a station, I feel like I'm done. I didn't do well and I just can't switch off. When I'm in a mental health station, I feel like I'm lacking empathy. I'm not convincing enough and I'm unable to communicate. When I'm in a station where I'm teaching junior doctor, they're not understanding what I'm saying and they're trying to clarify all the time. I'm always waiting for positive assurance when I'm talking in the real exam. I want to know if I'm saying the right thing or not. I had a lot of negative thoughts. I didn't do well. and that shakes my confidence during the real exam. And it was affecting my confidence, and it was showing up in my performance. So I kept on thinking about all of that. But the good thing is that I realized that there is a hope. Maybe if I'd identified what could have been the problem, and there is some hope that if I try to fix these problems, I might have a chance. So I tried to open a new chapter. And I was thinking about it, and I said to myself, my attitude is what got me into this situation. That has to change. And I committed to myself to always say, I love myself unconditionally, and I forgive myself. If I knew better, I would have done better. When my daughter comes to me looking defeated, saying I made a mistake, I give her a hug and I show her love and security. And from now on, I'm going to treat myself the same way. And that was a very important prospect, because you have to respect and love yourself to be able to protect yourself and then be able to help everyone else. But you have to have a good relationship with yourself. Then I said, this is a performance exam. My whole future is based on how I act well in the exam. And I started looking up, okay, what do actors do? How can they switch from being happy to crying in tears in no time? And that's what I needed. I need to switch. I need to be able to communicate, perform like an actor. And they use strategies like references to real events, imagination, and visualization. So I kept on looking into all of that. And they told me when you feel frustrated, when someone interrupts you, just name it. You can name it in my injustice story. And just acknowledge it and move on. When I'm in a consultant station and the consultant is looking in my eyes and I feel intimidated, I used to talk to myself and I say, don't feel inferior. Show them who you are. I'm an emergency physician like you. When you go into simulation station and you feel overwhelmed, just remember, I remember the psychologist told me, can you imagine a 30 years experienced emergency physician walking into resuscitation scenario? Can you imagine how he's walking? How is he talking to everyone? How is he communicating? Can you imagine his tone of voice? Can you imagine how clearly he's giving instructions to everyone? And I said, yes. He told me, can you be that man for 5 minutes? I said, I can. And that's what I did. So to be able to switch between stations, I used to talk to myself. Each station's got its own theme. Some stations requires you to have simple medical language. Some will require complex medical language. Some will require layman language, like when you're dealing with someone who's telling them their medical problem. When you're dealing with complaint, you have to show professional, simple language. So before I go in, I used to think, which one is this? And I switch on. And that helped me to switch off. When you go into a mental health station, imagine you're the most experienced psychiatrist who never failed to develop rapport with any patient. Be that person for 5 minutes. And I try to practice as much as I can to imitate that picture or imagination in my mind. When you go to a teaching station, imagine yourself as a professor of emergency medicine who knows how to explain and predict questions. Whenever I finish any lecture, there is no more questions to be asked. And be that person. Positive assurance. Imagine counting to 3. When they count to 3, you have to jump off the fence. I don't get marks for not jumping, and I don't get marks for sitting on the fence. So if I want to say something, I have to say it with confidence. It has to be the right thing. And I used to talk to myself all the time until I got to the exam. Negative thoughts. I put this piece of paper in my ankle under the socks. And whenever I have any negative thoughts, I send it to that piece of paper to deal with it later. So then I started to do more studying and analysis of psychology. I used to study psychology during that time, and especially performance psychologists. And I started to pay attention and analyze all my thoughts. And wow, I found that most of my thoughts are negative thoughts. They're not constructive. I'm always blaming myself. I'm always doubting my ability, my confidence. So I used to add and enforce positive thoughts and challenge every negative thought. Are they real? Where did they come from? Challenging. Spend time thinking about it. Where does that come from? And I had to think about how I'm going to manage my fears. And that's an extremely important point, because that's what stops us from moving forward. So, and majority of our fears are just expression of negative thoughts. You allow them to enter your mind. The more you approve them, the more they take over you and control you. When you face your fears and challenge them, they disappear. And I realized that big results are never caused by occasional mega actions, but it's always about small, consistent actions every day. And then that's when I started to write down my notes, and eventually that became the majority of my upcoming book, Winner's Mentality. And one of the theories that I adapt or come up with is that the life journey is a zigzag curve. It's not a straight line. You've got down slopes and up slopes. The quality of your life is based on what you do in the lower half of the curve, not the upper half, and definitely not at the top of the curve. The more positive talk you do at the upper half of the curve, the more positive talks you get back in the lower, when you're in the lower half of the curve. So I'll show you an example of that. So the red or pink is your negative emotions. That's when you're feeling down. The green is that when your life is good, everything is going to plan. But the reality is we spend most of our time not feeling great, having negative thoughts. We touch on good life for a short period of time, but most of our life is actually below the zero line. But the good news is that you can actually control that curve, because emotions are the product of your mindset. So any emotion, as I'll show you here in emotions, that will take us to the second theory, emotions reinterpretation. So when you have a thought or event, you interpret it, you process it in your mindset, and you end up with emotions, which is output. So going back to that, so you can actually change your emotions based on how you process the thought. So, but before I touch on that, you actually, if you understand that your downhills will end. And if you think back about your life, most of your downhills, they got better. It's been up and down. So with that in mind, my plan was to don't have to try to get the curve up to all above the line, but just try to move on with your life, even when you're not feeling great. So your actions, separate your actions from your emotions. So if you're feeling frustrated, angry, sad, acknowledge it. Don't resist it, but just keep on going with what you're doing in life. If you had plans to go to the gym and you're feeling angry, frustrated, you just had a fight, doesn't matter. I'm angry, but I've got a plan to go to the gym. If you don't, that means you're giving your emotions the power to control you, and they will keep controlling you. So, and remember, the other strategy is called mental adaptability. So let's say if you go outside, it's cold outside. We put on heavy clothes, warm clothes. But if it's cold in your home, you turn the heater on. There's a huge difference between both situations, because you can control the temperature in your house. You don't have to put on heavy clothes. But when you go outside, you can't put heaters on. So you actually put on heavy clothes. when you think about it, when you can change the circumstances, when you can change the environment, you do it. But if you can't, you have to change yourself. And just that goes on with anything in life. We try to change the circumstances. We try to avoid stress, avoid challenges. But I always say, don't wish for less problems, but wish for more skills to deal with the problems. Change yourself. So going back to emotions reinterpretations, just to explain it a little bit further. Imagine a salesperson making calls to sell a product, solar light panels. He calls the first person. He said, "Why are you calling me?" And they hang up. So he calls the second one. They hang up. So he calls the third one. They yell at them. They call the fourth. Can't get anywhere. Imagine after 15 calls, how are you going to feel? Horrible. You're probably going to end up going home and that would be your last day. But if I tell you that salesperson, they sell 20% of the time, which means if you make 100 calls, you're going to sell 20 times. Or let's say 5% of the time, sorry. So if you make 100 calls, you're going to sell 5 times. That means roughly every 20 calls, you're gonna have one person who will actually buy your product. So that will mean every time you get a rejection, you're one step close to making a sale. So you have to get 20 to 19 rejections to sell. If you keep that concept in mind, when you get rejection, it's not gonna make you frustrated or angry because it has to happen. So you've got one person who's frustrated from being rejected, and the other person is actually quite happy because I'm very close to making a sale. It's all about how you interpret the thought or event, and the output is up to you. You can make it happy outcome, or you can make yourself angry and frustrated. It's in your control, your mindset. Nothing comes out without you approving it. So that's a very important concept. And 20% is what happens to you. 80% is how you respond to what happens to you. Life throws obstacles in front of everyone, but the successful people know how to respond to it. It doesn't break anyone. It doesn't break you if you know how to deal with it. So it's not about the obstacle, it's more about your response to it. And the other questions that I mentioned before early on, it's called stress maximization strategy. When you're stressed, I used to when I'm in charge in ED, you get patients crying. Department 40 patients waiting to be seen. You've got nurses lining up to ask you questions. You've got doctors want to discuss their patients with you. You've got mental health patients screaming. You've got phone calls, GPs trying to refer patients to your ED. And you're dealing with all of this. So I developed this strategy to scale my stress level out of 10. And I try to see how I'm going to perform well when my stress level is 10. So I make it like a game. I get in, okay, so with all of this, what's my stress level now? 5, 6. Okay, I'm going to try to perform very well while I'm under that much pressure. And I keep practicing this. And I want to make it up to 10. I want to see if I can perform well when my stress is 10 out of 10. And by time you do it, it's all about how you think about it. I get excited when my stress level is high because that's going to separate me from anyone else because I've been training myself to perform under pressure. So my job is not to get rid of the stress, it's to perform under stress. And you have to remember that life is a big trade center. If you want to get something valuable, you have to trade in something valuable. If you know that, you're not going to be shocked or when you are faced with a price, because success is not cheap. Success is very expensive. It doesn't come without sacrifice. You have to know the price in advance, and you're happy to be able to pay the price. And remember that we've got 5 factors affects our actions: environment, previous knowledge, previous events, or current events, results, and our view of the future. These factors will determine how we act and determine our emotions. To be happy in life, try to make your actions based on your view of the future, not past experience, not previous results. And remember that your life's only competition is between you and yourself. You want to be better. You want to be today better than you yesterday. And just if you want to run 2 kilometers, you start with 100 meters. And the next day you do 110, 120, and so on. And that's why big famous athlete like Usain Bolt, if he was just competing with his other runners, he would have never broken the world record. But it's all about you competing with self. That will get you places you've never been before. And when I'm facing stressful situation, like let's say I'm in ED and all of a sudden I get the emergency buzzer went off and there is someone who's about to arrest, and I all of a sudden have to run quite stressful resuscitation scenario. I ask everyone to do it quietly. And I remind everyone, our job is to perform, to do what we are good at doing, which is the medicine, resuscitation. Don't think about outcome. Don't think about, is this patient going to die? And my job is to revive this patient. No, your job is to provide the best medical care possible. And the outcome is not up to you. So that takes away a lot of stress. I think I'm running out of time. So I'm just going to move on a bit quicker. So in terms of happiness, what would make you happy in life? Happiness is nowhere. Happiness is a skill that you develop over time. There's nothing that's going to make you happy. Watching a good movie, having a good time with your friend or your partner is going to make you happy for a short period of time. But the real happiness comes in from you. You can make yourself happy even in your darkest times. So I'm just going to have to skip some of my theories. But when I ended up sitting my exam for the third time, when I'm frustrated, I remember the injustice story and I name it and just move on. When I'm dealing with a consultant in the exam, when they look at me and I feel intimidated, and I say, don't give me that look. You don't know who I am. When I'm overwhelmed in a station, I remember the professor of emergency medicine walking in, and I act and walk like him. When I can't switch between stations, I remember the themes. When I'm dealing with mental health station, lacking empathy, I remember that I'm the best psychologist that would provide the best care and empathy. I'm teaching junior doctor. I'm the professor of emergency medicine. I don't wait for positive assurance. I just say it with confidence. Negative thoughts go into that piece of paper in my ankle. And here you go. I got my results in April 2020, 8 years after joining the college, and I passed the exam. And I remember that I knew that the only barrier between me and my success was just me. What you become in the process of pursuing your dream is more valuable than achieving your dream. I started walking, talking, and acting with different spirits. With that mentality in mind, within 5 months of finishing my exam, I was emergency physician at 12 hospitals: Boxing, Maroondah, Austin, Bairnsdale, where I was a co-director, La Trobe, Albury, Wodonga, Knox Private, Holmes Glen Private, John Faulkner, Mulgrave, Peninsula, and Epworth Geelong Private. And that was my schedule, waking every day, and sometimes morning and night. That's in March 2021, April 2021. And within 1 year, I bought my wife a dream home that we dreamt of having. And I got my kids a small present. And within 2 years, I was the director of the emergency department at John Faulkner Hospital as the youngest doctor to be the emergency department director. I was also working on creative medical equipment to help not just ED doctors, but GPs, orthopedic surgeons, and ophthalmologists to provide much safer, patient convenient, and effective medical treatment in Australia. I went back to visit my family and the poor people in Egypt, and I helped my brother to start from below zero in Egypt to designing and building his business in manufacturing floating jetties in Kuwait, Turkey, and Canada. And he's now got patency on his design in Canada. I'm coaching fellowship exam candidates, OSCE exam techniques at Eastern Health and Austin Health. And I'm designing a program for Eastern Health to coach building resilience, endurance, and mental toughness. And I'm soon will be releasing my first book, Winner's Mentality, Turning Stress into Strength. Our mindset is extremely powerful. Train it to serve you and lift you up when you fall down. Each of us harbors incredible, untapped powers waiting to be unleashed. Never settle for less until you unlock them. These mindset powers will propel you to heights beyond what you've ever imagined. They will bring you a profound sense of joy and fulfillment that will not only elevate your triumphs, but also serve as your unshakable source of strength during your darkest moments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Moussa. That was extremely powerful, inspiring. We've had a couple of members stipulate an amazing story, incredible. Dr. Moussa, not only, and I think I speak on behalf of everyone here, is we're very pleased that you could see the light and continue to share your story with not only us, but obviously others in those that you help and save every day. But more importantly, you're sharing these strategies and practices that will help so many now and in the future. Just a quick question for you, Dr. Moussa. Obviously, I hate to harp on about COVID and where the mental health epidemic is becoming worse, I should say. How can we better support those who will be struggling silently, who do not wish to come and see a psychologist or pick up the phone or air their pain or sorrow or how they're feeling, and they suffer silently? What are your thoughts there on how we can support those individuals?
That's a very good question, and that's the whole reason I'm doing all of this. I don't know if anyone knows that we've had emergency registrar who just passed away. We actually committed suicide. He's taken overdose at Maroondah Hospital. That was only a few months ago, Camilo. And he failed the exam as well, and that his life went downhill, and he couldn't get himself up. And he was again in a similar situation, unable to be open to everyone about his feelings. And that's why I'm doing all of this. And I'm sharing my story so I'm trying to normalize it. It's okay, we're doctors or professionals, but it's okay to be depressed. We're human beings, and it's a stressful job, not just medicine, any stressful job. And you don't even have to have a job. It's okay to open up and ask for help. And there is a lot of help. And I'm trying to increase the awareness in the community and all the hospitals that I'm working in, that to pick up clues. If you see someone struggling, changing, becoming more depressed, he's trying to hide his emotions. He's getting someone who gets quite angry very easily, which is not himself or herself. Someone who's just calling sick all the time, someone who can't finish their shift. You just have to try to encourage them to open up. And that's not just in medicine, that's in everywhere.
Thank you, Dr. I was very fascinated by your poem or your words from your own struggles. If I can quickly just reverb, I just had a friend who just sent me Adele's and other personalities that are coming out with their mental health. In quiet corners of the mind, where shadows creep but light can find, a silent battle day by day, a heart that hopes but feels dismay. The weight of thoughts unseen by all, invisible yet standing tall, But even in the darkest night, the soul still seeks the faintest light. A whispered word, a hand to hold, in stories shared, in truth retold, for every scar, for every tear, there blooms the strength that conquers fear. It's okay to stumble, to feel lost. The healing comes, though at a cost. And though the journey's hard and long, you rise again, more brave, more strong. And I thought that was quite compelling to some of the words that you've picked and your own journey, Dr. Moussa, in today's presentation.
Yeah, thank you. That's can't be any closer to the truth. That's every setback is a setup for comeback. And we all go through downhills, and we all recover. And it doesn't matter how quickly we recover, but we all should know that we eventually will recover. We just need to have a positive mindset. And that's the whole idea of me being interested in positive psychology. Past is not somewhere to live. The past is there for you to learn from. Just move on with your life. Life is too short to waste on memories or negative thoughts. So there is more to enjoy in life, and always look for the future. Always have a dream and try to reach your goals, whatever your goals are. Having a goal in life is what stops you from really going downhill very quickly.
Very sound advice. Thank you again, Dr. Moussa, again for being our guest speaker today in our evening meeting. We would like to offer you something as a token of gratitude for spending your time and your personal journey today with us. We'll be providing you our limited edition Rotary socks, 200% Australian made in Preston by our past president, Phil Innesby, for Wilderness Wear. And we'll be posting those socks to you upon your availability. So the weather's just been delightful today, and we're just speaking offline how much the weather can impact your emotions today. And we've had absolutely a glorious spring day here in Melbourne, and with some of our guests in Coolangatta that have actually got the Melbourne weather today. So hopefully you're not feeling too down as well. But again, thank you so much, again, Dr. Moussa, for your words, your journey, and more importantly, some strategies which we can all take on board and help someone that we can identify that may help, but also just use it ourselves to become better individuals for society. Without further ado, I'd like to hand now back over to our MC Philip for the closing of our meeting. Thank you again.
Thanks, Stephen, and thanks again to our speaker. Terrific. I started in as a mental health social worker, working with veterans, and I was pleased to get the job. It was one I trained for, but I realised I was the only one in the department who wanted it. But it's a very important area, and lots of trips to EDs over the years. In closing, I'd like to thank our chairman, Stephen Rando, evening chairs, George and Kenza, and our production team for a terrific conversation this evening. I'll just slip in a little ad for the snooker next Thursday. According to Kelton, if you don't have a clue about using a cue, no problems. So next Thursday at the Athenaeum would be much appreciated, and although I've not stepped foot there, I understand it's a very spectacular workplace. Reminded that next week we meet for lunch at the 35th floor of the Sofitel. Our guest speaker will be Dr. Katie Allen, public health professor and paediatrician, former member of Federal Parliament, and Professor Colin McLeod, Executive Director of the Melbourne Entrepreneurial Centre. Together they will speak on the topic of innovate, patent, and prosper. And also remember that our monthly evening meetings will continue every second Wednesday of the month, with the November one scheduled for the 13th. Please diarise the dates, and we look to our website for how to register and join us. Thank you everyone who's joined us this evening, and thank you again, Dr. Karim, for sharing an inspirational message. And yes, I used to work with an ED physician who was into Star Trek, so whenever I went down there I wore my Star Trek tie. That was our way of goofing off. I don't think the residents were always impressed. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. And goodbye, everyone. Do stay safe. And now we close the meeting. Thank you.